epiphany. Why don't you let us in on this story? What you're thinking and what the background is here?
Yeah, so I read a report on data quality today, actually, deeply, going into data quality in the framework of AI Act. And I realized that the demands in Article 10 are so high and specific. So my previous understanding was that any good AI system that could be used in a high-risk category could become that suddenly, because we developed it for something else, but now in this context it would be a high-risk category AI system, so we need to certify it. But I realized that you have to back down and start all over again and fix all the compliances on data. And
so your epiphany, so to speak, was that it is potentially more work than people think to be compliant with high risk.
Yes, and it may not even be possible. Too expensive or not even possible to use that particular AI system, even though it seems to be the right one, because you cannot be compliant towards.
No, you're highlighting that you went down the path, you realized this is not Article 10. So we are going down this path. And if then you want to transition that into another area, which now is Article 10, it's not that easy.
Exactly.
It's not something, even you have made technology choices or data governance choices or data quality choices that now they don't hold up anymore.
Exactly.
So actually the design pattern, what we have built, is not really an Article 10 type system.
Exactly. So for me, this means that it turned my understanding around. And in the best of worlds, everyone would follow the Article 10 specification on data quality, and all AI systems could become high-risk systems if they are suitable.
That is my way of solving it. That is basically if you're very, very professional on computational data governance, of governing data in code, and that is your standard. It's not really a problem, is it?
No.
But
exactly.
if you're trying to do this in policy and bureaucracy, then it's not so easy to switch. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree.
But how do you determine what data quality is then? Can you really automate that? Can you say that if you have this type of data, for example, in a data set, then it is high quality? Or how do you really do that in an objective way?
Well, there are standards for this, and don't get me started in that, because it's so many, and there's so many categories and under categories and standards and methods that you need to use. So I think you can, and that is
really, I think it's very subjective, actually.
But let me lend you a proposal. I mean, so what is data quality is really use case defined. You know, what you can have fuzzy data here, and you can have a fuzzy logic, and you can have a fuzzy insight that is valuable. But over here we are matching accounts in finance, so it needs to be perfect. So in that sense, you are fully with you there. But you can standardize and professionalize data quality work.
Can you? I would love to see it. I haven't seen it yet, though, but
I will give you the report. It is written by my colleague Nishat Movla at RISE. Yeah.
No, but so okay, I'm humble. Maybe you're right. But my argument here is basically, why don't we? Aren't there fundamental practices, like professional practices, that you can follow, and then guide you to do the right thing?
Okay, so how do you remove biases from data? I mean, I think it's such a stupid thing to write in Article 10. I mean, bias is one of the most important things to have in a data set for it to be useful. If you remove all biases, it is more or less completely useless. Okay, so what type of bias then should you have? I mean, these are so many questions that is super hard to define, and that is not easy to standardize or automate, I would say.
No, and the argument then is not easy to standardize and automate what is data quality, but you can raise the level of professionalism and practices, so you can actually ask.
We can be better at it.
We can be better at it.
That's super subjective, I would say, today. And we don't have. I haven't seen any good, best practice for it.
Yet.
You're right.
Yet.
Because
I
we
see your
haven't
point.
started, all of us,
Yeah.
to contribute to this.
No,
So,
But I hope that you will fix that, Petra.
oh,
But this is the real challenge, right? So the people are charged with, as policy, making up the legislation, and people are even charged with the idea to write data quality on these topics, and they are perfectly fine and very useful. But then it hits reality, and now we are talking about a hardcore engineering reality, and this is also a tricky point. Now we need to co-create between these dimensions, in my opinion. So talking about data quality, or talking about the AI Act, or talking about the fundamental real engineering problem, but
Is it an engineering problem? I'm not 100% sure.
no, but somewhere it becomes an engineering problem.
Then it's easier, I would say. I think the hard thing is really before you can automate it in some way.
Elaborate.
Yes.
I mean,
you're on the right track,
Okay,
by the way.
so I mean, take the bias thing. I mean, it can be different thing than biases. It should be relevant to what you're training it for and so forth, and representative and blah blah. But if you take the bias thing, what should we take? Some kind of medical application. Let's take X-ray scans of brain tumors or whatnot. I mean, whatever. It could probably be classified as high risk as well. It's important application of AI. Then, okay, should the race, for example, of a person be considered a bias or not? Maybe. If it's really, imbalanced in terms of race of people that is used to train a model, that could be an issue. That could be a bias that is, inherent in the data set, and that should be fixed potentially. That's, rather easy to see. But then if you go further and say that, but perhaps, people of a certain race have a certain tendency to get brain tumors. What happens if we remove that? Then we actually remove, important information from the prediction that we want to make. This is not as easy to say that we want to have 100% equality of races in the data set. No, then you actually could be removing very useful information.
I love what you did now, and I then realized I need to rephrase the way I say this is an engineering problem. You are absolutely right, but I'm also right. It's an engineering problem in the sense that when someone has decided what is the right or wrong, then it's a quite easy engineering fix. But what I meant, which you highlighted now, I think you highlighted beautifully. You made my point, by the way. You need engineering competence on how AI models work in order to at all understand what is the useful type of policy. That's what I meant. I meant you need an engineering skill of very depth in order to understand how the fuck should I interpret bias in race. That no one can do that without you, Anders. I can't do it, Anders.
but
No, I
also,
can't.
I can't do it either.
Anders.
I can't either. So
no, but also, if you remove all biases, it becomes biased.
yes, yes, exactly.
I love that.
It's not
Ba-da-boom.
representative anymore.
Exactly.
Did everybody get that joke?
That's a very good.
That's a good joke.
T-shirt moment.
Oh, that is so.
That's a T-shirt quote.
That's a T-shirt. If you remove all bias, that
doesn't become representative anymore. It's very good.
Love it.
Okay, this will be an interesting topic to discuss more, I think. But before we do that, very welcome here, Petra Dalunde. You're coordinator of testing AI at RISE, right? Or please describe your background. Who is Petra Dalunde?
Okay, so my title at RISE is both coordinator of test and evaluation of AI.
Evaluation as well. Okay.
And I am also coordinating one of the 4 TEFs at EU level in Sweden.
And TEFs, I think you need to.
And TEF is testing and experimental facilities.
Ooh, okay, there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
What's the difference between test and evaluation?
Okay, so I added evaluation because to test AI can both means to try it out. It can also mean to test it through towards standards, compliance, methods and such. And also I have realized that talking about testing AI or test AI could mean develop AI to test AI. So I added the evaluation part to make it clear that it's about testing and evaluation of AI models.
I like that explanation so much.
Thank you.
And TEFs Is that a part also of the EU-funded operation, or is it that a more RISE-specific
No,
initiative?
it's 2.2 billion euros spent on 4 TEFs over 5 years.
In Sweden or in Europe?
In Europe.
And what is a TEF then?
A TEF is the EU Commission's way of helping the SMEs with all legislation that is coming to come to these experimental facilities and get help with compliance, with testing in real test beds, and make sure that the AI that is developed and will be on the market is safe, compliant, trustworthy.
And maybe we should, what's TEF stand for?
Testing and experimental facilities.
Testing and experimental facilities. You heard it here before, the first, if you haven't heard it before. This is an important topic for medium-sized business in Sweden. Don't go home and do this alone.
No.
Is it related to the sandboxes that people speak about in the AI Act as well, or is it a different thing?
The sandboxes will be connected to TEFs.
Okay.
And since it's so much money of the Digital Euro program complete budget for 2022 to 2025, we are connected to almost everything concerning AI. So the TEFs are, they're hoping a lot on us. And still, what we are going to try to do is to create a bilprovning for AI systems.
I love when someone makes an example and a way to communicate that everybody could sort of understand. Bilprovning. Okay, and what is the English word for bilprovning?
Yeah, that's
Car authority certification. What you do with your car, you take it somewhere to have it tested that it's roadworthy.
I have to ask Google about that.
Bilprovning in Swedish.
Yes.
I love it. Great.
Yeah. So that's what we are trying to build, and also giving access to real test environments. And there are 4 TEFs. One for smart and sustainable cities and societies. That's where I work. And then there is one for health, which is in like medic, diagnosis, medtech and such, AI within that field. And then there is AI Matters, that is production manufacturing industry.
Is it a reason or a thinking, and of course it is, for having domain more oriented TEFs?
I'll come back to that. I'll just say the last one, so we don't.
Yeah.
And the last one is agri-food TEF, which is
yes, there was 4.
food production and agriculture, AI within these
So the
fields.
4 main TEFs, sorry for interrupting you, so we do it properly.
Smart cities, health, industry, manufacturing, that is, and then agri-food.
Agri-food.
And yes, I think there is a connection to how they created the data spaces. I think they regarded all the TEFs being domain related to the data spaces, but
I think it goes back to the opening here, that you know what, you need to build up a prejudicat. You need to build up a case understanding of how to deal with bias or whatever. So I think it makes total sense that you cannot have domain competence in all different areas. So how can you understand bias in all different areas? You can't.
no.
So it makes total sense to me to have a more domain-oriented understanding of this in order to get further.
And just one thing more, because they planned all this before ChatGPT came. So everything has changed since then, just saying.
That's a good point, and let's see if we get back to that shortly. But let's finish just your introduction as well. So you have been working at RISE now for how long?
Almost 2 years.
2 years.
And before that, I worked at AI Sweden for 3 years. That's where I learned the domain AI.
Yeah, right.
I worked a lot with understanding the transformation that organizations need to do to be able to use AI. And before that, I've done a lot of things, but the one thing, the epic fail I did was building a smart city test bed from within. And I never understood why the customers never came.
Let's get back to the smart cities. I think we need to dig deep into that shortly as well. Perhaps before we do that, can you just elaborate a bit more about the current role you have at RISE? And what is RISE to begin with?
RISE is Research Institutes of Sweden. It is several research institutes that are put into one. And we have 5 divisions, 3,500 employees scattered all over Sweden, headquarters in Borås.
Borås, I have a person that
I grew up in Borås.
Oh, cool.
And I have an understanding for the institutes and Statens provningsanstalt, etc.,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
That is still a big part of course, if you look at for someone who doesn't know RISE, I think more people actually understand or know about Statens provningsanstalt. It's such a massive institute.
Yeah, so it's Acreo 6, Statens provningsanstalt, Victoria Institute, a lot of research institutes.
And then many small ones.
Exactly.
Really. It's a 10, 20, when they started to pull this together.
Exactly. So now we are 5 divisions, and I work in the digital system division at the prototyping society department and connected society unit. But that is kind of irrelevant because I have colleagues in my team that comes from all over RISE.
And maybe what is more important than is to understand how it's funded and how it's brought together. So typically, if we take the stuff that you are working on now, what is the gel that sort of pulls this together as one cross-functional team, if you like?
Okay, so we are funded 50% by EU, and the rest is funded by DIG, the Swedish authority, through Vinnova.
Yeah. And then you're working on some key objectives that sort of gel so you're all together, or how to understand it when it, as you explained, you have colleagues that come from different parts of RISE, but what makes the gel? What makes this, what is the team, so to speak?
The KPIs for the project of Smart City TEF, and it's called CitCom. And I need people that are legal experts, AI experts, cybersecurity experts, smart city expert, testbed digital twin experts, and also project managers.
And just for my stupidity, could I understand if I'm taking on sort of an enterprise corporate hat, can I understand this as a program where you're collecting resources under the umbrella of a program, or how can you define it for someone who's not used to working in this way, or a project, or?
Yeah, exactly. So we have realized, we started January 1st, 2023, last year, and now we have realized what we want to do. Well, we realized that quite quick because we talked to a lot of SMEs. What do you need in relation to AI Act? Do you need a physical test bed, or do you need legal support and guidance?
Or everything?
All
in between.
all of the, yeah, exactly.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And your role more specifically, if you just were to elaborate on that.
Yes, okay, so I'm coordinating, I'm leading the team. I think we are 12 people now. And I'm also responsible for work package 5 in this fantastic project, which is market and communication. So I'm also head of communication in the large EU, on EU level. So I'm in the management group as well.
And are you, I guess we should move into the TEF as well. Just explain what that is. Perhaps that's a good point to do so.
This is the TEF we have been talking about now.
Yeah, the smart cities, I was thinking.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so please elaborate. What is the smart cities and societies, or what is it called?
Smart and sustainable cities and societies.
Yeah.
When EU designed it, they were talking to 2 networks. One global, OASC, Open and Agile Smart Cities.
Open and Agile
Smart Cities. It's a network, global network, that are focusing a lot on MIMs, minimal interoperable mechanisms, where AI, data format, APIs and such are included. And the other network was living in EU, and that's a lot. Many EU cities that has created a network that work together, and their aim is to make digitalization to add value for citizens. So the EU Commission asked them, given what is coming in legislation, AI Act and so on, what does the cities, smart cities, need? What help does the SMEs that deliver smart city?
Can you give a concrete example for a typical like smart city kind of
Actor.
actor or application or something?
Municipal administration, common
administrative
customer,
work, yeah.
to an SME that has developed an AI system that could add value, and it could be within school, education, or social services, or traffic prediction models, or...
So to understand who the TEFs are for, who we are helping, we are thinking about small and medium enterprises, SMEs, who are doing things, developing products, developing services in order to accelerate the path towards smart cities.
Exactly. So they are the ones that we can subsidize and help, and they are the ones that we offer the services we have developed, and we have developed services that we have understood that they are asking for.
And this can be incumbents who's been around as an old company for 20, 30, 40 years, and it can be startups but the common denominator is they're planning to do something here within their innovate, so to speak, and it has some degree of data and AI in it.
Exactly. And also we can receive paying customers, and that could be anyone.
Okay, so someone else can ask.
Yes.
But could we a little bit go into the subsidy? Because I think this is very important to understand, like the target audience and this, but it's actually money on the table for the smart people to go and get help. So what is framing the subsidy, and how do you qualify for that?
To qualify, you have to be an SME registered in Sweden, and you have to not have already taken the 300,000 euros you can receive in state aid during 3 years.
So there's other things you can have apply for,
Exactly.
and if you have done that already,
Yes.
then you can't really double dip.
No, you
Okay.
cannot. So you will have to fill in a de minimis declaration, it's called. And there you also sign up to being an SME according to EU legislation. And also within the smart city domain.
And the state aid, I guess it's through Vinnova then you get that, or is it some other way you get the state aid?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So through this, there's then a different call that you can then apply for, or something like this?
No, we have services online now, a
you have
service
them.
catalog, and if you find one that you think is interesting, you contact us.
And then you help the process.
And then we get things going.
That's better. Now, just to be sharp, when we talk about a TEF like this, is this for Sweden only? Because we have listeners, of course. When EU is asking you to set up a TEF, how broad is your geo scope here?
That is a very good question. In this TEF, we are 11 member states that are working, divided into different nodes. But so far, we haven't been able to figure out how a Swedish company could go to the Danish TEF and get subsidized. We haven't figured out the agreements and everything on that. So for now, you have to go to your home country.
So the simple advice, always go through the single point of contact. The SPOC should be through your local, your Swedish one.
Exactly.
But then when you look at the TEF's total capability, is broader than Sweden. It's actually 11 nodes in this TEF. So it could be that from your SPOC in Sweden, you're guided then through the maze, so to speak.
Exactly.
Is that a good...
That is a very good explanation or description.
To start local, and then from the local you get access to what the TEF really can do.
Exactly. And also, I have to say, RISE has 3 TEFs. So we also have agri-food TEF at RISE and health TEF advice.
Okay, and the fourth one, not in Sweden.
Manufacturing, not in Sweden.
Interesting. And if I'm in a manufacturing company, what do I do then?
You can contact me if you are listening here. You can contact me and I will guide you.
Yeah.
Or you can look it up online.
Because I can see how you only have nodes in Sweden on 3 of them, but there needs to be an access point for the 4th TEF, then I argue. That is super simple and clear. Is that fair?
Yeah, fair, but I don't think any of us yet can receive a customer from abroad.
No, and so to be figured out.
To be, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's all new. It's all new.
Yes, and also that we actually can charge money for services in a EU project.
Yeah.
That is also new.
Interesting. So you will be a for-profit then, more or less?
Yes, eventually, and yeah, we are figuring that out as well.
But and I think that's a good thing in these topics. This is hard stuff, and this is a service. And I said it before. I actually made the proposition without knowing all the details that I'm learning now that it excites me. I said to someone who is in Parliament, you know what? We should be the world class or the European best in class of smooth EU Act. If we can be smooth on EU AI Act and smooth on financing and VC, we get people here. So from that perspective, I was like, there's a no regrets investment going into this. And I said, and damn if the fucking consultants and the lawyers get this bill when RISE should have it or someone else should have it. We should make money on this. So I think it's a good idea that this is a for-profit eventually thinking, that this is mature.
And you know what, Henrik?
You agree?
I agree, and I want us to, in Sweden, start figuring out together what is it that will be when the TEF project has ended. Who will own the Bilprovningen?
Exactly.
Who will be able to sell services there?
Yes, exactly.
We need to figure this. I cannot figure this out on my own, so I need you guys.
But because it needs to go, as we have said so many times, beyond the pocket, beyond the project, and become operation, become a product, become something that is sustainable.
Exactly.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Awesome. And if we just were to go a bit more concrete, if you are an SME and you want potentially be connected to the TEF, what can they get help with if you were to get some concrete thoughts about that?
Okay, so one service that we actually have delivered on is policy evaluation guidance, it's called that. So we take an AI system from an SME, and if we find that it is a high risk, ends up in the high risk level.
Can you help assessing that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I have
That's
legal
interesting
expert.
That is good. That's huge value.
Just that in itself, I think a lot of people or companies would pay for.
Yeah, pay for.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is something we do first, together with our legal experts, and then we go through the data quality, the process, the usage, applications and everything. And we see what the company needs to do in order to be fully compliant.
I rather see RISE as a governmental cash cow on these topics than consultants and lawyers, to be honest. I really do.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? It's awesome. So okay, so this is already now there. So already now, you can go and get subsidized money to get consultant support from RISE rather than going to.
Just want to say it's not. We call it policy evaluation guidance because we are not consultants. We cannot advise.
Who can?
Yeah. So we only.
Fuck that. Sorry, my lingo. Management consultants. Fuck them. They cannot do that either. By the way.
Okay, but we are spelling it out clearly. So
you're too modest. I'm getting upset because you're too modest, because you're doing exactly what everybody else is doing, and you're probably doing it better because you're closer to the real regulation and you have closer to the real channels. So what you are doing is way better than most management consultants and lawyers are doing in town and charging a shitload for. So I'm just giving you a boost here that you are on the right track, and you should not diminish that. Sorry, I'm getting excited because you are so on the money.
Thank you. I hope so. And the beautiful thing also with working at RISE is that we have research projects at all times that follow what's happening at all times, because this is going to be moving.
Yes, this is
moving targets. Okay, so I mean that by itself I think is super useful, and so many companies would love to have help, both with the risk assessment by itself, but also some guidance in how to become compliant. I mean that's super useful. What if they, or how do you then do the guidance? Because I guess, is there some test beds and stuff as well that you help working with? Or is it more from a theoretical point of view, so to speak?
It is theoretical, but we use the customer's data and AI model as examples, so to say. But we don't test it in any platforms or anything. So in this service. Yes. So it would be a next service. So now we are looking into if we are actually going to test the same AI system, what do we need to build in order to say, yes, you are compliant. We are not there yet because standards are lacking and blah, blah. We don't have enough experience. But eventually we want to get there. But what we can do is that we can let companies come and collect data and support them to develop AI systems from that data, to learn them on how to get the data just if you want to develop something for the social services or school or something. So we have a fair data lab for that.
That's fantastic.
We also work a lot with cybersecurity, so we have cyber range services also. Wow. We have also access to
cyber range services. I'm thinking about gun range here, but I guess in this case it's like a cyber attack range.
Yeah, cyber security services.
Yeah, but I love the name, cyber range.
Because what's beautiful with that name is there's a range of surface areas, of course, where the attacks or problems with cybersecurity you can have. So cyber range is good.
I was thinking more it's cool to have a gun range.
Yeah. It's cool to have a cyber range.
Yeah, I like it.
I want to have an AI range.
Yes.
But
awesome.
But I get this. You put a picture in my head with bilprovningen. And I think no wonder we are starting bilprovningen from scratch, and we don't even know what are the facilities that it should be included in a bilprovningen. So if you make that metaphor and analogy to the max, okay, we can theoretically look at the car, and then we can write policy on what you should look at. Secondly, okay, how do we do a brake test? How do we do the engine test? How do we do the CO2 test of the car? All this needs to be figured out, and in the end we can package this, in my head, bilprovningen.
Exactly.
But we are of course starting with what we should test, then how we should test it, then the guidelines for how to test this, then how do you productize this, and then ultimately how do you make the toolbox, how do you make the bilprovning facility look like?
Exactly.
But I guess we don't know exactly how to do it yet, right?
No.
But I think, and it would be fun to hear what you think about this, it's rather strange to pass a law that is enforced before we know how to be compliant with it. Isn't that strange?
Isn't that normal?
Maybe.
It's strange, yes, but have we done it in any other way in the past?
If you shoot someone, you know it's easy to say that.
No, but honestly, when you pass a law as a policy, and then before you have case law or you have things how to apply it, and you have toolboxes for it, is it any difference? I'm not sure. I'm too uneducated.
I have had the opportunity to co-develop a law, EU legislation, and that was on drones.
Interesting.
The drone legislation in EU. I was participating in, and the EU Commission were inviting the airports, the business, the air companies, the airport responsibilities, the authorities on air, Luftfartsverken, air administration agencies.
Luftfartsverket in Swedish,
Yes.
I get it.
And also the drone business and the cities. So I was there representing Stockholm.
Oh,
And we met every 6 months or something and agreed on writings and talked and learned from each other and looked at all the perspectives. And when the legislation was done after 2 years, everyone was there.
but what's different in the sense, if you compare it now to how you interpret how the AI Act came about?
Yes.
Did we know then how to act on the law, or was that also a work in progress, or is that different?
I think it's different, and I
that's
never
interesting.
thought I would say this, but drones are only 3-dimensional. AI is so many more dimensions, so I think
that's a good
it may
point.
not be possible.
So the point was, when you were drafting the law, you were able, because only 3 dimensions, if we take that example, to be more concrete, and you actually knew where this was leading. Whilst when we look at the AI Act, it's on such a high level compared to your hardcore engineering example, Anders gave.
And who would you invite from the authority level in the member countries and
No, they don't know it.
exactly.
They don't know it.
So there's a huge lack
There's a
of
difference,
understanding
right?
and
So
knowledge.
I guess you're right then.
But it's a spectrum. I think it's a good point
I
that you have.
thi-
It's a spectrum. Some, are more concrete than others, but there should be at least some threshold. I think, the legal uncertainty that are
Yes.
available for any law that's passed. Yeah, I think, and you're right, Henrik, and we need to have case law to really, know where the difference is or where the limit is. But
you have
if
a
it's
point.
too much uncertainty, then you have no idea what to do.
Yeah, but
What the consequences of the set of demands. It's very easy to set up a set of demands. You have to be high quality. It has to be non-biased. It has to be representative. If you just say that without really, trying it out on some real use case to know if it even is possible, that's strange to me.
Yeah, but this is a really, really good conversation to be had, because I can put people in 2 camps now. I can put people in camps that I listen to, and really smart people, really respectful people, who argue, it's great that we now have the guidelines on top level, so now we can actually have a framework for how to work. And this is the argument that it should be easier even to innovate when we need the guidelines. And I believe that is completely 100% true if I take the drone example where we are more concrete. But I'm not so sure what happens when you have the same argument when it's so many layers of uncertainty underneath. You did the sign language as I'm talking. So the whole argument, this makes it easier or makes it harder. Oh, I don't know. For this case, it's not that simple. I think that's a big, big insight. Do you agree? You sitting here nodding, but
I agree,
do you
and
see
it's
the
not
argument?
simple. And but what would be the alternative?
Yeah,
Exactly. I think we can all agree that we need regulation in place. I mean, we can't live in the wild west something.
but
Anyway,
then,
but so some regulation is necessary. I think we all agree on that. But then the question is really, what is the level of
exactly.
concreteness that you need to have in the legislation for it to not cause what GDPR actually did, in my view, is that the level of uncertainty caused companies to not even go there, to remove their data they had and the services data could provide. And if that's the case, it's really dangerous. But then, on the other hand, if we have services like the TEFs and what you're doing at RISE, and we are better than that in Sweden than perhaps other countries, it would actually be a benefit for Sweden. We could make this an opportunity potentially.
That's my argument.
That Swedish companies are having a big upside.
But and sorry for jumping back and forth and jumping in, and you need to steal the table, Petra, because I'm so excited. Because what we are saying now to me is profound. Because my takeaway is that yes, we need to have regulation, but we need to have extreme humbleness to when it's concrete and certain. We need to be very humble to this spectrum, and then maybe we need to do it, but we need to maybe do it in different ways when it's a concrete spectrum to a high uncertainty spectrum. And maybe that's the problem right now when we have treated regulation and gone into it as if it was concrete when it's no way near concrete. So it's not then if or what, it's how we do it in relation to the VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity of what we are dealing with. That it needs a process, and as you said, maybe you need to stay on even a higher level, or not trying to treat it as it's clear, because it's not.
Well, no, it definitely is, and I think we need each other. We need different use cases, and we need to learn together. I think that is crucial. Otherwise, no one will be able to do this alone. And we are talking about an emerging technology. So
it's changing so
who
fast.
knows?
Emerging technology on top of that. But Petra, because you said, okay, but do we have any other option? In principle, no other option. In practicality, yes, huge options on how we tackle it. So how would you elaborate on, let's not dig in the back, but moving forward, what is important, or, because I think there is a lack of humility in relation to how uncertain this is, emerging technology, all this compared to other situation when we do law. So, do we have another option? Me and Anders, 100%, no, we don't.
Option, I mean, we can compare to other legislations out there. The UK has their version, it's different than European one. American has a different one, China has a different one. They all take different approaches, and we could compare it and see, what is potentially a better one. I don't have the answer for that, but there are different ways to approach this, for sure, right?
And if someone wants to take lead on that, I will definitely have large ears. But I don't think it's in my description.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
We are speculating.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we take another topic then, potentially? And the sandbox has been spoken about a lot, and we mentioned it briefly before. It's connected to the TEFs partly, and I guess we have more. There will be like a Swedish official sandbox as well, right? Or can you just elaborate?
Okay, so there are sandboxes and there are sandboxes. Again, we have terminology. So the AI EU regulatory sandbox.
Yes.
That is the one that is named in the AI Act.
Yeah.
Every member country will get financing to establish one, and in Sweden the government has put on an investigation to see who and how.
Isn't it INI that will get it, or?
Well, I don't know. It's an ongoing investigation, and we are terribly late on this ball. So the investigation will be done in like a year or before summer next year, and then we only have 1 year to get things going, because the AI Act gets straight into force on the certification demands and high risk.
Is there a reason why we're late on it?
And I don't, if there is, which it probably is, I don't know.
No, but because I asked the question because if you understand the reason why we're late on it, then you can fix that reason and maybe start earlier.
No, I don't know the reason.
Because the tricky point is that you have very, very short time to execute on operationalizing a sandbox.
Yes, but
very little time.
There are EMU is on the ball, so they have already established one. The thing with the EU AI regulatory sandbox is that it has to have certain criteria. You have to have the authority involved, and it's when you use GDPR data, it has to be like secure. And here you can violate the legislation when training the model, and then you have to prove that the model will not relieve sensible data. So that is what it. But then you can have a regulatory sandbox where you play around and learn. It may have to be safe and secure because you're working with sensible data or GDPR data, but you don't have to have the authority involved in that. You just need to learn.
Right.
And then you can have a regulatory sandbox. Some call even experimenting together.
Is that a sandbox? Can you set up your own sandbox, you think, in some way? Or?
Yes, but it won't be the...
Yeah.
EU AI
I heard someone
regulatory.
saying, it will be more or less one official kind of sandbox authority in some way, but then startups or other companies can apply to be certified sandboxes in some way. Is that true, or do you know?
I don't know enough about that
But
yet.
let's take one step back here. What is the objective and the core goal of having sandboxes? So what problem are they there to solve? Because now we're looking at legal sandboxes and we're looking at technically, and we're looking at experimenting and maybe we put something up which we really, like with GDPR, the whole idea was that I got no comments until I did something and then I could get comments. That's the point, right? So no one would comment if this was good or bad until I built it. Lived there, been there, done that. So I guess it's in that strain that how can we build something super fast or simple that we can get comments on, or?
Exactly.
It's that simple. Yeah?
Yes, and you don't need to get comments if there is no GDPR data in it or sensible data. So that's the case. And the EU Commission wanted the TEFs to be able to provide these services. So now we are looking into that as well. It has to be safe, secure, and you have to have experts there and to be supportive on the task, so to say. But also, from the beginning, the tests weren't supposed to test general purpose AI or large language models either. So that has also become something handed on to solve. Yeah. So there's a lot of things happening as we go along, and I don't think it will stop.
No, it won't stop.
I think the whole work on general purpose AI, can we take that perhaps later? I think it's such a big topic. I would love to go a bit deeper
Me
there.
too.
But okay, so just going back to the sandbox, and we don't know yet who will operate that in Sweden, but at some point, and hopefully sooner than later, we will have some more clarity around that. And then, if you have company X, they want to, become compliant, but they want to experiment here in the sandbox,
or even they want to understand if this is worth pursuing. I think even earlier, it's a valid point to go to a sandbox to understand the implications, what you're trying to do, to understand if this is legal, if is this an Act 10 type problem or not.
And I guess you could think about different stages here. If you have a really new idea, it's nothing being done yet, you have no proof of value or proof of concept or prototype, certainly not a product. Could it be more like a checklist kind of thing where you say, can I test if this idea would work? And then very quickly get a no, and potentially you can just scrap the idea. Is that potentially what the sandbox could do, or is it
also,
later in?
Definitely.
Oh.
Yes, and also give you like input, as Henrik exampled with. You can get response.
Yeah, but
input.
I really see the way I understand a sandbox. If you really want to have a sandbox, you need to go back to a use case life cycle. So what is the sandbox equivalent of the ideation? So it's like a funnel of crazy ideas that we want to narrow down to good ideas and AI for good. And maybe some needs to be weeded out early with no cost, and then you take it one step further and one step, and then there's a full-on type of testing before deploy. I don't know. So I fully see this as a funnel. What it
sounds like we should have like an AI chatbot that you can just operate with and ask, is this a good use case or not?
As the first sandbox from the first topic, why not? Why not? Yeah. But then you get deeper into really. I think it's a good idea. My example, and this is Vattenfall, right? Getting a straight answer out of the lawyer without showing something is impossible, right?
Without putting a gun to their head.
No. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how this structure is set up, that they need to comment on something they view. So if you can't define exactly what the system does and who it's for, how can I do GDPR? I think that's fair. But it really puts then an effort in, I was like, can I use Sandbox something so I can show you the app I'm thinking about, and you can then read the names that I was thinking about, and then you can say what's wrong with this, and then I can fix it. And I think it's that simple. If you really, so we need to be able to do something that feels real with minimum effort in order for the law to work. I think it's that simple.
Yes.
It's not rocket science.
No.
But we have, And I remember in Vattenfall how some people say, "Oh, let's not talk to these guys. Let's talk to them last." No, let's start with these guys. Flip it. Use it as our innovation engine.
I think if we take a comparison to like AI regulatory compliance and cybersecurity, in cybersecurity you have this concept called shifting left, and normally it's when you want to apply security to some kind of software system that you have built, you traditionally do that last. So you build a system, then you think, perhaps we should just do some testing in terms of security as well, and then they do that once the system is built, and that's not a super good idea. The more you can shift it earlier on towards the ideation stage, even potentially shifting it left, so to speak, the easier and better it will be in terms of security. And shouldn't we apply the same when it comes to compliant in terms of AI regulation?
This is what I do on a daily basis. I use the term data governance shift left. We say data governance shift left.
Cool.
Computational governance shift left.
Nice.
We are using that terminology, which is a software terminology, or like this. But we are using that on a daily basis to understand data governance by design or compliance by design. So shift left is the right way, Anders. I saw the light on exactly that, and that means then you need to get it into the software development lifecycle. It's that simple.
It's
and you
the
need
next T-shirt. Shift left.
Shift left. Yeah,
Right
it's an old
way.
T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
It's an old T-shirt
Okay.
in software.
Also, it's the right way.
It's the right way. It's by design, right? By design, you do it right. It's and if you then would dream of what a sandbox is all about and what a center is all about, the whole center is about shifting left. Do it right. Or I say it like this, do it right, actually, but ask the question when it should be asked in the right moment of time. That's what shift left is all about. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's hope that we get some more clarity around sandboxes and they actually have a nice implementation, and that we can be leading potentially in Sweden in terms of having good sandboxes and TEFs to make AI companies
Actually, that is the main principle what you guys are doing. Shift left. It's actually a very good input, Anders, in the terms of putting it in the head.
Yeah, you as well, Henrik. But perhaps we should go a bit into the general purpose AI as well. And you phrase it very well, I think, Petra. When the AI Act started, I guess it started like 2020 or 21 or something.
Yes.
Around
and
there.
the TEFs were beginning to be designed 2021. I think the call was out, so 2020 together with the AI Act. The call was out 2021 and everyone was applying in 2022, and in the end of 2022 you knew which consortia that would go ahead, and we started January 2023. November 2022, something happened.
Yes, something happened in November 2022, and that was a big thing. And I mean, that's a problem, of course. We were speaking about ChatGPT, of course, that was released then. And I guess, that caused a big difference. Or I mean, that's a problem with the regulation. I mean, it is much slower than the technological kind of speed of development that we're seeing. And if we were to just unpack the term general purpose AI, I guess, to some extent, of course, the ChatGPT is very much more general than a much more narrow AI type of application that you used to have. And then we get into this kind of foundational models and frontier AI models and whatever they call it these days. And that changed a bit, right? Or how would you say that the whole ChatGPT moment changed, potentially connected to the AI Act?
From what I heard 6 months into the project, summer 2023, the EU Commission was shocked.
Really?
And yes, they had kind of panic. So they were asking the TEF coordinators on EU level, will you be able to test general purpose AI, or well, they called large language models then.
Yeah. Yes, and if we were to just think a bit more, why is it so? I mean, I think a lot of people realize that this will have a huge impact on society, and it will change so many things. And perhaps the whole thinking when they designed the AI Act to start with will change a lot. But and I want to to explain it myself or get a bit further here. But if we just take one example, I'm trying to think, not to be leading too much in my questions here, but
maybe that's okay, Anders, because this is really tricky. So why don't you frame a stage, a context, and then we put the question in there, and then we all work on it. I think it's okay.
I think we can separate the development of AI into at least two, perhaps more, but two stages. One is, the traditional one is simply you build an AI solution end to end yourself. You take the data, you train a model, and you put it in production, and bang. These days, not so much. I mean, today we have other companies, like the big tech giants primarily, building up these kind of foundational models, or LLMs to start with, now more multimodal foundational models, and they do not build the application. They build the foundation of it. That's why they call it foundational models or general purpose models. So they don't know when they develop their models what it will be used for. So then if you have a regulation now, should it be the providers of the general purpose model that is accountable for everything it's used for? Or is it the other company then that then starts using it through the APIs of OpenAI or whatnot that are fully accountable for everything that happens? Or how should that accountability then be divided? For me, it's not obvious. That's at least one difficulty that I see with general purpose models. Would you agree with that description?
Yes, I agree with the description, but it's even more than that. And since the RAGs now are coming strongly, we have another layer on top of that.
Yes.
But how the AI Office and EU Commission are trying to solve this is the code of practice that is being developed together with the actors on the market.
And that's very much happening right now, right?
Yes, it's happening right now, and they want the code of practice to be confirmed by Parliament in the spring, early spring, and they want it to be viable from May, because 2nd May it should be used, because that's when the legislation on limited risk legislation trades into force, which is general purpose AI, large language models and such. They have limited risk category 3.
Isn't that strange to say that the general purpose, without knowing what it's going to be used for, have a certain risk associated with it?
Yes, but then we have seen, and now you cannot remember that I'm not an engineer. So now okay, so my technicians are saying that you can use a large language model to sort data in a security system.
Sort data in a security system?
To classify data or prioritize data or do something. It's a large language model and it does something.
It categorizes stuff.
Yes. There you go. It's a high risk.
Yes.
So there are examples already now being talked about that we really don't know.
So you gave an example now that clearly the domain or the application is all about high security, and there's many things going on. But one portion of this is that we're using a large language model to do a subtask at some point. And that subtask is like sorting, whatever. But as soon as you've done that now, you have sort of kind of dragged the whole thing now into a class 10 type system potentially.
Yes.
But I think I remember the early days of the first versions of the AI Act, and they, I believe, classified chatbots as a thing, and as a technique, I would call it. They may have called it a use case, but I think it's a technique. And they said I think it was limited risk at that point. But to say that chatbots in general are limited risk is really weird. If you use a chatbot to, for example, have children that are having some kind of mental disorder and you use it as a therapist, I mean, that's so far away from limited risk as you can come.
It's a high risk.
It's a high risk.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what Henrikin and I have been speaking about so many times. You can't take a technique and say, this has a certain risk. You have to always speak about the application.
Yes, it's the application
and
that
I would argue
tells
that,
you.
And I think, so many people are saying that the EU Act is use case based. I don't think it is. I think it's very much technique based. Still, even though they try to make it more use case based, but I think it still is very much I would argue.
The tricky point is that they're aiming for use case, and we are talking when we're explaining it use case, but we as engineers or reading it, you are not referring to the use case, my friend. You're referring to the technique. You're muddling the waters here. It's not really stringent.
Even like remote biometric identification, that's not an application, it's a technique.
It's
And
a
that
technique.
is specifically classified as a risk, independently of what it's used for. I think it's wrong.
Yes.
It becomes really, really hard to follow it. I
Yes,
think.
but okay. So in May, we will have the code of practice.
Yeah.
I hope, and then in August we will also hopefully have process for evaluation of these general purpose models as well. That has to be used before putting a general purpose model on the market. So perhaps that will be use case. It will be case by case. So I don't know how this evaluation process will look, but they are developing it. And
But how can you develop a general purpose model without? I mean, it is general purpose because it's not use case based, right? It can be for so many different use cases.
you have to evaluate it on the application from an application.
But you don't know the application in advance.
But I think I follow you, Petra, here, because if you can imagine that there's a practice now that sort of articulates what's the process, shift left or whatever, how you're supposed to do this. And this is then put in not in relation to Microsoft, but in relation to someone using then the large language model. Then it becomes one practice and how you do it. If you go straight only for the large language model as sold as the API, that has to be evaluated on a completely different perspective. So one thing is how Microsoft can be applicable for what they are doing, but then I think it's the other way around when someone is using the language model as part of their product or part of their use case. Did I get you right? Because clearly Microsoft will be subject to this on their broad level, and then we have the people using it.
Yes, but still I think Anders is on to something. And here is also where the RAGs come in. So
I mean, it's easy when you come to the use case. The companies that use the APIs or the GPI model, then we know they have to comply with it, no question about it. But the problem is the other thing. The problem is, the providers of the GPIs. What should they do? Should they enforce in some way that you have registered the use case and they have control of it? What happens then in open source and a meta approach where they actually are able to just do it without having any kind of control of it? Will open source be banned for general purpose AI? That is, I think, an potential consequence here.
And not only there. So the open source idea that has been so beautiful for quite some time now, and we have all strived to come away from all these end-to-end services or products that we cannot get data from and like co-create from or such. And now will we get back there?
It's. I wish we could answer it. It's a
yes,
thing.
me too.
But there is work going on.
Yes. But I hope we get some more clarity on this because it's so many open questions and we have it available today. We need it today. We shouldn't really have to wait until May next year, but I hope we can have some more clarity as soon as possible.
Me too.
It's time for AI News, brought to you by AIAW Podcast.
Cool. Time for a short middle break
Yes.
of the podcast. And at this point, we go away from the TEFs and the testing and evaluation of AI models briefly, or perhaps not, we'll see. But to speak a bit about some of the latest news that have happened. And I think we will all speak about the same thing, but we'll see if we have something else.
What do you mean? We should not call this AI news, but we should the Nobel Prize week, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
It is.
I mean, what else can really beat that kind of news, I guess?
Nothing.
Anyone that wants to get started on this?
No, do you have an angle on this? Because
No, I don't have an angle on it more than I think it's interesting that the committees have had to squeeze so much to get the prizes out to AI. It's a bit kind of squeezy.
It's extreme.
Okay, elaborate on you're making it.
So the physics one is kind of physical-ish.
Is it?
Well, I'm not an engineer, so I don't really know the details, but that's my understanding. So for me, the take is, do the committees need to evolve the prizes?
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, do we need other types of
Categories.
Categories? I don't know.
Let me perhaps give you.
give you. I like your frame it.
So to start with, 2 Nobel Prizes of this year, 2024, has been awarded to, let's call it, pioneers of AI. The first one in physics, in some weird way, were awarded to John Hopfield and Jeffrey Hinton, primarily. But that was, the question then is, how can you connect what Hinton and Hopfield did? And just to give a brief background around this, Hopfield was this kind of network called Hopfield Networks. It's a simple kind of recurrent network. It's not the type of neural network we work with today. I can go more into depth if you want to how that works.
Could you please do the whole setup correctly now, Anders? Because I don't think many people know exactly for what type of their work they were awarded what is the Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize also highlights exactly what piece of their work. They did a distinguished career, but what is it that we're giving the Nobel Prize for?
Let me do a quick overview, and then I'm happy to go more into depth into what it means. But in short, it was the Hopfield for his Hopfield networks, and then Jeffrey Hinton, that is, one of the godfathers of deep learning, and he was working at Google for a long time as their with AI for a long time, and he quit for various reasons. But anyway, he invented something called Boltzmann machines. And that is what they got the prize for, so the Hopfield network and the Boltzmann machines.
And the Boltzmann machine is sort of in the deep depth of how we understood how to build neural networks, or?
It was one of the first neural networks, but it's not the base of the networks we have today. So the interesting thing is that Hinton did something else, which is much more profound.
That you think?
That he thinks as well. Because he did the backpropagation algorithm. That is still in use today. All of the big neural networks, even the ChatGPTs, are using backpropagation. He even, during the press conference, he got the question, Hinton got a question from a journalist during the Nobel Prize press conference, asking, how has your invention influenced the AI of today? And he said, not that much, they are not used, but backpropagation, which I also was part of inventing, that is still in use today. That's much more, impactful.
So actually, he would like to have it for the other topic.
I think, he should have. The problem then is that how can you connect the backpropagation invention to physics? He doesn't have a physics background. He's a psychologist and computer scientist, but Hopfield, he is a physics. He is a professor in physics. So there is a clear connection to physics when it comes to.
And what was Hopfield thingy?
As a Hopfield network is a type of network where you have 1 or 0 only as neurons in a network, and it's basically associative memory. I can go more into depth if you want to.
Who is first? Hopfield is earlier than Hinton, right?
So Hinton built on Hopfield's work. So the Boltzmann machine is like a specialization of the Hopfield network, where you have the visible neurons and the hidden neurons, and you can basically make it learn patterns from what it's exposed to in an unsupervised way. But it's not using gradient descent in the same way. It's not using backpropagation, which everything is using today. It didn't have like a clear error function that we have today and things like that. So it was a different thing. And to me, it's kind of similar to how Einstein got a Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect, but not for the theory of relativity. and it's like, this is repeating itself a bit again, I think. And even when he said it himself during the press conference, that hurt in my stomach a bit. But also, and the second thing, of course, then yesterday we also heard that Demis Hassabis with some other people also rewarded the Nobel Prize in chemistry. for AlphaFold partly. The amazing thing that we're able to predict the 3D structure of proteins, and normally it takes like 4 or 5 years, like a PhD, to come up with a single protein's 3D structure. Now AlphaFold, and especially AlphaFold 2 that they had, could predict 200 million proteins 3D structure, and they did it, and they put it out freely available for any researchers to work with. So so many people now in biology and other fields are using this. It's amazing, and he truly deserves a Nobel Prize. But in chemistry, should it be biology? Should it be? I don't know. For me, it's kind of inflation.
So here we have the chemistry really goes to research lab of DeepMind.
Yes.
Yes.
But DeepMind is owned by Google now.
But DeepMind is owned by Google, and what
Hinton
about
comes from Google as well? So it's a big Google.
So it's a big Google win.
Yes.
It's a big Google win. But okay, Hinton was never at DeepMind. And I guess he was he at Google when he did the work? He was a waterfall.
No, I think he was in Toronto.
He was in Toronto then.
Yeah, Toronto University. So I mean, he is one of the mafias of Canada.
Yeah, this is real mafia Canada. Blah blah blah.
Jan LeCun and Joshua
Benjo. But the distinction, the AlphaFold, that was DeepMind. Period.
Yes.
That is purely out of DeepMind lab.
And Hasadis and Dennis, he was part of it as well. So he is a big part of it. So he truly deserves a Nobel Prize for that. That really has impacted science and healthcare in so many ways.
Yeah, and of course, the ideas there also helped us with the COVID, to develop vaccines faster and stuff like that, or pop strains to it. I mean, maybe not one-to-one, but we learned from.
Yeah,
maybe I'm
future
wrong.
Perhaps. I don't think directly, but no.
But then of course then what was the last thing they released now just recently this year that almost got missed?
Oh yeah,
the same lab. AlphaFold step 3 or what the hell was that all about? It was almost it's huge, but it's lost in the drama of ChatGPT or large language model.
It is a bit. It's too many AI news.
I mean, because they've been moving AlphaFold 1, 2, and then they had a quite big release. Was it bacteria? No,
in May, I think. Or something.
They took the idea what they were doing with proteins and they applied it in. I think was it viruses or bacteria? Or
I can't remember. The interaction of molecules in general. So it moves up trying to understand how the interaction of protein works with large scale molecules in different ways. In that way, you can really simulate how using these kind of newly defined 3D structure of proteins will actually impact the molecules that you are using them for. So the whole field of research and drug discovery now can use it for more than just the 3D structure of protein, as I see it. But I'm not an expert here.
But can we take it back now to Petra Dalunde's a little bit pointy introduction to this? Do we need more? Is this really fitting into the categories? Is it new categories? What is your?
Are they outdated?
Yeah, because you when you framed it with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek there. Could you elaborate on what how do you think about that? Because I think
they need to squeeze now, and how does the Nobel Prize? How does the category need to be defined in order to really promote the scientists of today with today's science?
Yeah.
What is relevant or what is most impactful today?
There should be a computer science or data science kind of category because it's so impactful for society, and AI will impact perhaps more than any science, I would argue, in the future.
But if we were used now AI, what do you call it? If we're trying to be AI pure, which Nobel Prize is the best one for AI scientists to get? Should it be math, or should it be some? Does it belong in the physics, or does
Yeah, so, I mean, you can claim that. I mean, some people say AI is just statistics, or even AI is just math. I mean, obviously, you can say that anything can be traced back to math, originally. But to say that AI is physics or AI is statistics, I mean, it's strange. I mean, it's not accurate.
But I understand how it actually makes more sense to me that they used AI and computational approaches in order to do something amazing in protein. To me, the chemistry case is actually not that strange.
Shouldn't it be biology then more than chemistry?
That one I have no comment on. It maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
Ooh, I did chemistry in school, you see, and you have a physical and organic chemistry and all these proteins and all that. Where do you really do that? Would you do that in chemistry? Actually,
But I agree, it's much closer. It's much easier to swallow, so to speak, the connection between chemistry and AlphaFold.
Do we have a Nobel Prize in biology?
I don't think so.
No, so then what's the closest? Chemistry. I don't think we have a Nobel Prize in biology, so there, do we? I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
But also in literature, which you were
Yeah.
talking about
Yes.
before, Anders, when will ChatGPT get the Nobel
Wouldn't it be
Prize?
super funny if the Nobel Prize in Literature goes to ChatGPT now?
That would be super funny. Or if someone actually managed ChatGPT to write new fantastic Shakespeare novels
exactly.
or plays. Why not?
It's just a question of time, I guess.
And
Perhaps
then
not this year.
did you see the joke, Sam Altman for the Nobel Peace Prize? That was just a joke. It was just a joke. Someone was copying and made it look really official. You know, it was just a joke.
Oh, yeah. No, okay, the Peace Prize as well.
The Peace Prize as well. Yeah,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah. But back to. I have another angle that sort of hit me, which is the same one. Oh, I wanted to be a fly on the wall on that discussion.
Yes.
You know, how the hell did you? How were they big? You can imagine the conversation they would have had, the arguments. It would be so much fun to
Still,
see.
I mean, I think the Royal Academy has so amazing, scientists sitting there in Nobel Committee, and they have the one professor after another that was super good. And I listened to the press conference, and they tried to describe what the Boltzmann machine was, and it was so awkward, and they didn't know what they're speaking about. And then some journalists were trying to ask a question, and they couldn't answer it. And it's you can't have a prize if you have representatives that doesn't even understand what they are speaking about.
So there are 6 categories in general: physics, chemistry, psychology or medicine, literature, Nobel Peace Prize, and then economy. Yes, Swedish risk bank, right? Prize for economic sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel or something. So economics. So there is no biology on it. So it's
Psychology
chemistry.
would be better, perhaps, for Hinton.
No, but isn't it physics a little bit more? No, it's not that.
Hinton is a psychologist by trade or
Interesting.
in education.
No, if you were there to look at the trade and commemorate who is the most famous psychologist, even if Hinton is doing work on AI, he's probably the most famous psychologist there is.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could argue. You can argue.
Yeah. Any case, I'm super happy about this. I think it's cool that even the Nobel Committee is recognizing the progress and the impactfulness that AI has on our society today. I guess that's a reason for them to do this.
Because that's back to the sort of joke of like, I would want to be a fly on the wall on that discussion. How do you think they reason? Is it because it's clearly so impactful in society, so they cannot ignore it, and now they need to try to fit it into the categories? Or
But not only in society, but in science.
in science, of course.
Yes.
It's impacting all sciences.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Big news, and we'll see if it will have as many interesting follow-up discussions as some other peace prizes. I won't name them, but there's been some controversial Nobel Prizes in the past as well. We'll see if this one will end up in that category.
But I don't think it's that controversial. I mean, like the controversy is in the sense to squeeze it into the category.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone from a deserving point of view think it's that bad. I'm not talking about deserving or I can figure something better. It's more about squeezing into the category problem.
Yeah. So many other AI news to speak about. The dev days of OpenAI, etc. But everything is
I think
taken by this.
Should we just leave it there?
Yeah.
I think we do. It's because then it became a Nobel Prize commentary. We can have another clickbait on that part.
Yeah. Okay, going back a bit to Petra and what you do as well at RISE and the TEFs and the sandboxes as well. Perhaps if you could, just to understand a bit more concretely, do you have some use case, some example, some project, some company that you worked with that you can speak about, just to give some example of how you collaborate with different organizations?
Yes. I won't name any names. yet. No, not today.
Okay.
We have an SME that wants to become a subcontractor in the TEF.
Mm.
And the SME wants RISE to co-create the service that is going to be offered. And the SME wants this to be done with their customer, another SME that actually needs this service. So we don't experiment like dry swimming. We do it with their real customer.
And is there a connection between the two? So it could be some kind of, unfair kind of advantage they would get?
No, any SME can become the customer if they want the service, and they can also be subsidized. So there is nothing unfair. And anyone can be a subcontractor
sure.
if they have something.
But if they in their turn have another customer that they are connected to and has a customer and have some kind of economical kind of dependency or gain from, I mean, if a SME comes in and becomes a subcontractor and then
they can bring their customers to TEF.
Yeah.
And we can subsidize them. But we won't be able to subsidize an endless number of SMEs. So we will have, so they will not have everything. They will have a couple of customers, and then they will be able to sell their service for paying customers verified by RISE.
I'm just thinking, let's imagine I create a company and I become a subcontractor of the TEF, and I can sell my services to other companies, and I get the payback or some kind of feedback from them saying, we just want to some kind of certificate from an official subcontractor of TEF to show to our investor that we are compliant now because the subcontractor is saying so. That could cause some kind of bias potentially, or do you see this kind of?
No, the verification will come from RISE.
Okay.
So the service can be performed by the subcontractor, but the certificate, or because we are not there yet, we don't have any certificates yet,
right.
and we don't even have verification intyg yet, but we are working to create that because that has been asked for.
Yeah, and I think that would be super useful as well.
But I think
that's a good thing because the subcontractor then can't really do that. They simply help them to later become certified as something.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
But what I take out of this is actually, since you're having real cases to work on, which are real substance stuff, it's not theorizing. So even to the point where maybe you are highlighting segregation of duties challenges, we don't know until we try it out. So I think to go this path and do it for real, then you can maybe take a step back. Ooh, there is something fishy here. Yes, they can be a service provider, but we need to have Chinese walls here and here and here. Stuff like this.
Exactly.
But could you elaborate a little bit, not going to details, but what is that process all about? How did it start? What are you doing? So more concretely, so we get a sense of what the work is all about.
That is a good question. Okay, so we don't subsidize 100%. We only subsidize 90%. So we already.
That much? That's more than 90
is
yes,
a lot.
90%. Yes, this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it will change.
Okay.
But subsidy in relation to what becomes really interesting to understand?
Okay, so we subsidize 90% of the price of the service that we deliver to the SME.
Okay.
So if we are performing it, we report the time in the project.
So is it mainly personnel cost? Do you add some kind of margin on top of that as well?
We have to, price-wise.
Okay.
We cannot dump the market.
Right.
No. But you have. But what is the pricing model now when it's all new? I guess it's almost like time and material that you're framing a project together, and if we do this project, we will get to a certification one way or another with you, or we get to a report, or
Exactly. certification it will be a service in itself when that time.
So now
comes.
literally what the concrete topic is, they want to have a report to understand, what is the deliverable, so to speak.
Yeah, it depends on the service. Different deliverables on different services.
But in this example,
It's too technical. It will be definitely a report in the beginning because we will need that ourselves, but eventually a competence and a fix at the SME that they will be able to use. So
okay.
a technical.
So there will be some recommendations or something like the report, but it will be something, yes, you're good here and here and here, but you have these fixes, so you need to, data quality, you need to do this, so something like this.
Exactly. So and the thing is that usually the beautiful thing in developing something new that isn't on the market yet is to do it with a real customer. And it's this three-point collaboration thing that I think is interesting. I've never experienced it before, and I think it's innovative, and I think it's flexible, and I hope it goes well, and it's the first.
I'm still looking forward. We're going to have Anton Osika here. He built this kind of GPT engineer repo, which basically is trying to help software engineers to build whatever kind of web application or game or whatever. And AI is doing a lot of the work together with a human, but it becomes super efficient and easier for people that don't have the skills to build application. I mean, I'm still longing to have a GPT tester, like a GPT engineer, that is basically making it super efficient to really validate and test, your application. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yes, it would.
I think the one that makes it will make a lot of money as well.
Yes, me too. But also the human in the loop, AI testing, AI.
Yes, human in a loop,
Yes.
sure, but still easier
Yeah,
to do, right?
definitely.
Yeah, to even imagine the whole bilprovning, the whole facility to be very much agent-oriented or chat-oriented, Yeah, it's an appealing thought, actually.
Yeah.
Someone who can guide you through the process.
Exactly.
Awesome, and the time is flying away here a bit, and we're trying to not, do the too long podcasts. We usually fail, but if we were to move into a bit more futuristic kind of thinking here, and we see today, we have a certain type of doing testing and evaluation of AI models. If you were to speculate a bit on the future and thinking 3-5 years ahead, how do you think the testing of AI models will look like at that time?
Yeah, it will. It depends on how the actors on the market will behave, how they choose to go, I think. Because if they go Hendrik's way, we do it by design, compliance by design, I think it will be easier. But it also depends on if we have new, jumps, technical development jumps. So it's really hard to predict.
And I guess also a question can be, because right now we're seeing a bit of a device between the American tech giants, and they're not releasing models in Europe because they are uncertain about, the ramifications of the current regulation that we're seeing. If that were to continue, that would be a strange future. So, I guess one speculation here, are Europe going to become more segregated and disconnected from other areas of the world, or is it going to come closer? I think actually not in the future, and I'm certainly hoping
Me too.
that it's not going to be the case, but it could be a consequence. And if we get a court case, some case law coming soon that is trying to, put a big fine on Meta or someone for putting up an open source repo that is being abused. Let's say that Llama 3.2 now is abused for building a biological weapon or a new coronavirus or whatever, and they are then responsible for that, and EU is forcing them to pay for it. I think that could have huge ramification. That would be very dangerous.
Let me give my 2 cents on that question, because you also dragged me into this when you said if they go miss my way, and I think I understand what you're saying, because I can even see now without the EU Act how different companies are trying to deal with fundamental data governance, AI governance or data governance, and I see a very distinct. I see really 2 camps right now in the industry, and even with my colleagues and consultants around this, where some people, in my opinion then, because I'm clearly belonging to one camp here, so I'm biased, I'm subjective. I think this can only be solved through computational governance, and ultimately to get to computational governance by design, shift left, what Anders was referring to as well. So it then means you need to get these topics embedded in what is referred to as the software development lifecycle or the AI development lifecycle from an engineering perspective, and it's simply part of definition of done of what we do around here. So you can't be an engineer without understanding the compliance dimensions of this. Now, what I see then is, so this is actually a very small part of the market is this mature, both from consultant point of view and from a practitioner point of view, like this. But I have the fortune to work with these consultants who know how to build this. You can enforce data governance in code. For them, for us, in this context, this is no difference. It's just adding policy layers that we haven't thought about, but the fundamental mechanism we have solved. If you go to the other camp, then you're still a little bit more on the pure policy side, and you haven't started to understand the prerequisite of translating policy into code, or you haven't figured out how you make engineering out of policy. And so if you look at what this future of an AI testbed and all that could be in 5 years, it should be the first one. But if the market is not there, you will be stuck in PowerPoint land and Word document land. It's going to be very, very different. I don't know.
I think, I'm
Do
hoping,
you agree?
Yes, and I'm hoping it will go that way, and perhaps we'll have a new type of job role in the future. I'm thinking like a governance engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful title.
Right?
No, but this is super important, Anders, because we highlighted the role a couple of years back, data steward. If you read data governance, data quality documents, we have a data steward. And I installed one of the first data stewards in Vattenfall in 2016, 17, Lutz Regner. And basically, he was already then towards what we are going for now, and in the sense that he understood the master data. He was the kind of guy who knows the row level names in SAP SED tables. So he really knew the data in and out, but then he was in the business, so he can understand policy, to understand access and different stuff like this. And we used him as a quality assurance person right down in the engineering team. So he was really much writing the policy, but he was a unicorn that he could then work with the engineering team. Have you enforced policy?
But I'm thinking a bit different.
Yes, but I want to elaborate on what you said, Anders, this biochemistry weapon thingy.
Yes.
So there are 2 things to this. AI Act doesn't apply to research, and it's when you put it on the market,
Right.
you can get like sued on it.
Yes.
So if you don't put it on the market in Europe.
But that's kind of sad conclusion, because then, obviously all bad actors, they ignore the regulation anyway. And if you use it for military purpose,
Exactly.
which is really scary these days, of course that would be horrible, and AI Act can have nothing to do with that anyway. And we can go into the whole bad actor kind of situation, but I think it's such a sad topic to go into.
Yeah.
Because, in some sense, bad actors, if it's like cybersecurity, ransomware actors or whatnot, they couldn't care less about this, and they.
But it is the principle that is interesting. Here you have this general purpose AI. If someone uses it to do bad stuff, who is responsible for the consequences?
Yeah.
Not super clear.
Yeah, but
It's not. And the question is, if like a company like Meta that is trying at least to be open about it, if they are considered to be accountable for this, they will have to stop the whole thing. That would be a sad situation.
No, but we have this joke, right? Well, not joke. I mean, like, someone is selling a hammer. Someone is designing a hammer. And in its simplest form, are we trying to make them accountable for how you use the hammer? Are you trying to make Canon camera accountable for porn, for children's child pornography, right? If I used to do it, a very stupid but extreme example of the tool versus what it was used for.
And this could be super clear in a clear product legislation.
Yeah.
Product regulation legislation thingy. But the AI Act is a mix of product legislation and safety.
Yeah, but this is the problem maybe. Maybe this is what me and Anders and some who is really expert in this is like, oh, you're mixing up the beans.
But they are kind of mixed in the AI Act, and that is problematic.
But maybe that's the problematic point, that sometimes it's better to modularize it and have sort of APIs between the different parts, because now it's when it's a mixed can of beans.
Maybe you should volunteer to develop AI Act.
I offered my services many times to several people, and I tried to highlight that, put me to work and I will work on these topics. I think, and Salla Francén, by the way, is one of our friends. She says this really, if we, who she's, chief data scientist at SEB before, Salla maybe,
I
of
know
course.
Salla.
Yeah. We need to take our responsibility as real experts here, because it's not fair either on the other side. But I don't think that is kind of working, and I don't think it's the expert's fault, to be honest. I don't think you are, and I'm not talking on you, I'm talking about how the system is set up.
And maybe
the question doesn't come to the right people. I'm sorry. We have the AI Commission now, and I have my objections.
You mean AI Office?
No, AI Commission by
the AI Commission and the AI Board.
No, I'm talking about the commission set up by where Svanberg is leading it, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay. AI Commission.
So when I'm looking at that profile, it's not so much of having any problem with who's in there. I'm just looking at the blind spots, what angles are not in there. Okay, and I think it's over and over again when we talk about the regulation. I think it's more like that. Of course, who am I to say, right? I just know what kind of conversation we've had here in 130 podcasts. They're quite good, some of them. Some of them are quite sharp. And
and we tricky. Who try to be in this context need to be open. We have to have large ears and also use use cases to understand implications and effects and consequences.
But we said it, this is a cross-disciplinary problem.
Yes,
and there is no one.
At least 2 disciplines are crossing.
No,
probably more. 5.
Okay, legislation, engineering, ethics, philosophy.
Definitely.
Okay. Not easy.
Well, you are in a very interesting field. I think the field of how we actually should test and regulate and evaluate AI models, I think will be one of the hottest topics coming years here.
Yeah, you're in the right spot.
So not to put you on the spot, but you have important work ahead, I think.
Yeah, but Petra, you are the right person, because we don't know each other, but simply by discussing and the openness and what I love when we talk, I'm not an engineer. You're not trying to be something you're not. You're rather trying to co-create with someone that can feel what you are strong at and what others are strong at. That's the mindset we really need. So you're in the right spot.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to reiterate as well, I think no one of us, and certainly not me, is saying we shouldn't have regulation. We need to have regulation in place. We need to have testing in place. The way it's working today is not satisfactory in any sense, and we need to have much better ways to do that. And I think one of the biggest problems we have today is the uncertainty of the regulation. Otherwise, the regulation is actually having awesome intents. But we need to fix the uncertainty, and by putting better standards in place, by having these kind of TEFs and the sandboxes to make it really concrete, I think that's the best way forward. So I hope more people were investing in this, and I'm really wishing you the best of luck to continue this work.
and my 2 cents to add to that is that clearly what our conversation here shows, this is a truly cross-disciplinary effort, and we need to be humble towards that, and we need to then staff according to that. It cannot be solved in any other way.
Petra, let me ask you a simple question. I'm not going to ask you a simple question. I'm going to ask you a really complicated question. Imagine we will have an AGI at some point. 1 year, 5 years, 50 years, or never. But assume it will come, whatever time frame. At that time, we will have AI that is, at least as good as an average coworker, perhaps even a super intelligence better than everyone. But it will be at least as good as an average colleague that you have. What do you think that future will look like? You can think about 2 extremes. It would probably be on the spectrum, but one extreme could be it's the dystopian nightmare of the Terminator and the Matrix and machines trying to kill us all and the paperclip kind of scenario and so many other horrible things that could happen. Or it could be the other extreme, which is the utopian future where we have AI that's cured cancer, it's fixed, we have fusion energy free for everyone to use as much as they want. We have services and good that are more or less free to use. We have a world of abundance, as a lot of people call it, where you're free to pursue your passion and creativity as you see fit, and may not have to work 40 hours a day or a week at jobs that you may not like. Where do you potentially see the future come in this kind of spectrum? Is it more towards the dystopian or more towards the utopian future?
I'm more towards the utopian future, but I don't know if we would be happy in a perfect utopic society.
No.
I think we humans need some resistance, some problems. We need to be needed, I think.
We would always have stupid humans, right? So
yeah,
never
let's
utopia.
hope so.
Exactly. Let's hope for stupid humans to continue to exist.
I want to test Sverker Jansson. He was here last week, and he actually made an interesting comment. Oh, we will have both. And he was the first time who said that, look at society today. We have poverty, and we have richness, and we have fairness, and we have unfairness. What do you think about his comment, that there's going to be a bit of both? Because no one said it like that before him.
It's very interesting. If it's possible, we probably will.
Yeah.
But, one way I usually phrase it is a bit that, I'm rather happy if we just make it until the time we actually have an AGI, but I'm really scared until we do. And I think with the world as we see today, it's a bit scary if we have humans in control that have bad intentions and they are empowered by the super powerful AI that we have today and will have tomorrow and next coming years. That's what I'm really scared about. But what do you think about that? Are you afraid about the current situation in the world and if
yes,
bad
who
actors?
isn't?
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Because your way of framing it is not really a spectrum on reflection on AI and how AI is a reflection of humanity and how we control and steer it, and the actors and the leadership.
Yes, but the consequences, the risk, if the wrong people are coming into power and can use this technology in their way to do their deeds.
But how to think about that? Should we then be very scared of innovation? That sounds crazy as well.
But why don't more people speak about that specifically? I mean, thinking about AI Act, good actors will try to be compliant, but it doesn't solve this problem at all.
It does not solve the problem.
That is true.
So, well, I'm hoping for a super happy future, and I'm really happy that we have recognition from the Nobel Committee now with the power of AI. So for me, I'm positive, at least.
Yeah, and I'm super happy to be part of promoting and marketing such a very important community service that is being developed. And I want people to go here first, then they can use lawyers, then they can use consultants, but go here first. That's my take.
Yeah, Petra Dalunde, I'm super happy that you are doing what you're doing. I'm wishing you the very best luck. I will support you the best I can. And thank you so much for coming to this AI After Work podcast.
Thank you, Anders. Thank you, Henrik.
Thank you.